Okay, good morning everyone. It's 10 o'clock, so we might make a start. Thank you all so much for coming. If you haven't met me, my name is Judy Mayfield and I'm the current president of the Association of Residents of Queensland Retirement Villages. When I'm talking today, I'll probably just say ARQ because it's too difficult to say all the other letters. So, look, thank you so much. As I said, welcome to this AGM. And a warm welcome. We've got a table of staff from various departments within the Department of Housing. And you will all know that the Department of Housing are the department that legislates and has policy, develops the policy for retirement villages and also for manufactured home parks. So look, if you've got any complaints, I'm going to tell you now, don't speak to them. Because I'm sure they'll be able to answer your questions, and you will have an opportunity anyway to talk to them after they'll be doing a presentation, and you'll have time for questions after that. We also have Danielle Lim. Now, if any of you have been on to our Residents Committee Zoom meetings, forums, you would know Danielle. She's a solicitor. She often comes to give us a legal overview of what's happening in the sector, and she'll be talking today about the bigger picture of what is going on in the sector. We also have Megan Hobson. Megan is the Member Liaison Officer for their organisation, which is the peak body called Ageing Australia. Now, I'll tell you, if you really want to upset Megan, call them AA. Come, you use AA, you know, as an acronym. She said, no, you're not to call us that. Ageing Australia. So Ageing Australia, you would have often heard me talk about the Property Council. So the Property Council is the peak body for the big operators. Ageing Australia works with the smaller not-for-profit organisations and also with aged care. So Megan has come here today to support us, and she's done a lot of work to assist us in the work that ARQ do. So we're very lucky to have Megan on side with us and promoting us within their operator body. Also, if any of you have met Lisa Hodgkinson in the back of the room there, Lisa has been working with COTA. She has been the project manager of the Energy for Seniors project. If you haven't yet spoken to Lisa, please go and talk to her. She'll tell you how you can read smart meters if you've got one of those. She'll talk about concessions. And if you're interested in having a session about energy saving in your village, please go and talk to Lisa. She's the coordinator, and she can organise for someone to come out to your village and talk about electricity use, savings, concessions, all of those things that are happening in the electricity area at this point in time. So I will, and James. James is from Bunnings. I'm going to get James to talk to you in a little while, just to talk how on earth have we got Bunnings at an ARQ AGM. Well, I'm really pleased to talk about the fact that we are going to be working in partnership and collaboration with Bunnings in the future. So James is just going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm really pleased to welcome James to our AGM as well. So without further ado, welcome to our members. We have 43 members, I believe, who are here today, and we've got about 10 apologies. So that list of apologies and attendees will be available to anybody who wants to see them. So welcome, and with that I will open the meeting to start with the agenda. So the minutes of the previous meeting. Now you would all have received the minutes in the last edition of the Connect newsletter. So that would have come out to you in August, and you would have all have had an opportunity to read those minutes of the last AGM. So the last AGM was held on the 20th of September last year at Fitz's. So can I have someone to move that the minutes of the meeting on the 20th of September AGM be accepted? Brian Mackay. Thank you, Brian. Could I have a seconder? I've gone. Meg Scott. Sorry, Meg. Meg Scott. Sorry. Oh, that's shocking. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Sorry, Meg. And I'll just sign those. My new Bunnings pen. Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? I had no business that I could see that came up when I looked at the minutes, but I don't know if anybody wants to discuss anything from the previous minutes. No? Okay, so we'll move on. So moving on to my report. It's been a really busy and productive year for ARQ this year. We've done more in terms of getting our house in order than we have done in the last any number of years. So I am really pleased that having Jodie come on board, and you'll get Jodie's report in a little while, having Jodie come on board as our Executive Director has meant that we are now compliant with all the systems and other legislation that we need to be compliant with as an organisation. So that was workplace health and safety, our employment contracts are all now up to date, and Jodie will talk about all the other things that we've done. So thank you so much, Jodie, for getting us back on track with everything that needed to be done. And also thanks to the admin staff. Laurie resigned this year. We've got Vicky on board. You would all have met Vicky. She's come on board just in a couple of weeks and has been came on board and was thrown straight into organising an AGM. So thank you, Vicky, for all of that. And Pauline, I'm not sure where Pauline is. She's still sitting outside at the front desk.
Waiting for late arrivals.
Waiting for late arrivals. You would all have met Pauline when you walked in. So, you know, thanks so much to the admin staff for getting this organised and for all the other things. So when you phone the office and you phone the membership number in the office, you will always get either Pauline or Vicky to take your questions. All of our database, all the admin tasks are done by the office, and our office is in Brendale. So our work with both industry and government has continued. I've presented at a couple of major industry conferences, and it is always great. I always enjoy talking to the operators, and I really do appreciate as well that they value the feedback that we have to give them around what is actually happening in their villages. So sometimes they have no idea of the issues that residents are grappling with in their own villages. So they will often ask me for what's going on, you know, what's the latest thing you need to be able to tell us. And I think when I get up on stage at the conferences, they all groan and say, oh, here she comes, you know, what you going to tell us today? But it's been really great. And I think we have a really good working relationship with both Ageing Australia and the Property Council. Something that I did this year that I've never, for the first time ever, was I was actually invited to speak at the New Zealand Operators Conference. So they had their conference on the Gold Coast. And I have to say that in Queensland, we have a much, much better working relationship with our operators than I would suspect that the New Zealand operators have with their residents association. There seems to be lots of strife, still very competitive, combative, they're just not working well with their residents. And of course, I had to tell them that. I said, you could do better than this, you know. Anyway, I don't know if I'm going to be invited back next year, but anyway, they could do better. I also worked in industry with a couple of panel discussions and involvement with, there's a couple of seats just here, with the village manager training. Now, I don't know if you know, but there's actually quite a number of trainings, sessions available to village managers. Village managers have a pretty hard job. They are really stuck between what the operator wants and what the residents want. So it's really great to see, again, that ARQ is invited to a lot of the village manager training, and we can help them and assist them to deal with residents. The other thing that's happening is now, because of the relationship we have with the village managers, a lot of them, if there's something that's going to happen in their villages which they think may be contentious, they actually give me a call and say, look, this is what's happening in our village. We're just giving you the heads up in case our residents phone you and want to know what's going on, or phone you to complain. We're just giving you the heads up of what we're actually doing and how we're doing it. And I'm really pleased to see that most operators these days are now being compliant with the Act and really trying to communicate well with their residents. So that's great. And of course, we work with government, and I'm really pleased. We've got a big representation today from the Department of Housing, and we've been working very collaboratively with the department. Let me say, I'm a bit surprised. Sometimes I get a call from a non-member of ARQ, and I'll say, oh, you know, and how did you hear about us? Oh, the government told us to contact you. So they are now dumping all of their stuff that they don't want to do back onto ARQ. Oh, the department told us we should call you. So that's great to see too. Our village visits requests have increased over time, so we go out and we speak to villages about the work of ARQ, about what the Retirement Village Act means to them, some of the things about how their budgets operate and so on. And so we continue to do that, but I am going to encourage people to think about having us in their village through a Zoom conference. That would make things so much easier for us. It is really difficult for me. At the moment, I'm the only person who does village visits. Ray Jordan has stepped down from the committee. So driving for 2 hours to do a 1-hour presentation and then drive 2 hours home again, particularly in the traffic as it now is getting quite difficult. So please, if you'd like a village visit, please consider inviting us via a Zoom conferencing. It's easy to set up, and we help you to do that. And finally, I just would like to say a great thank you to the ARQ committee. We wouldn't be able to operate without a full committee. They've been great. Unfortunately, this year, Brian Mackay and Ray Jordan will not be re-nominating for the committee, but we do have a number of new people who have put up their hands. But many thanks to Brian and Ray for the work they have done over very many years, and they will certainly be missed within the work that we do in the committee. So thank you all for supporting us. Thank you to you, our members, for your continued loyalty to ARQRV. And please go and tell everybody in your village about ARQ and do some promotions for us, because it is going to be more important as the changes that we are going to see happen in villages. And we are going to see a lot of changes coming forward with the ageing in place from government and people staying in villages longer. please talk to people in your village, because what's happening now, one of the things that we also do is to help families. If you die or move out of your village, we will actually assist your family to understand what is required as they exit and leave the village. And I am getting so many families now calling us to say, could you help me? Mum's died and you know, we don't know quite what to do. Their parents have not been members of ARQRV, and it's really difficult. We will help them, but I certainly wouldn't help them to the great depth that I work with families whose parents have been a member of ARQ. So that's one of the other things that we do. We're not dealing so much with disputes anymore, but we are certainly assisting families to deal with and understand how to leave a village. So please do that promotion for us. And just to, I've always got something else to say, haven't I? I talk too much. Just to finish off, I do, on your table, there are these sheets. If there is not enough to go around, there are some at the front desk. We do want to expand our services. We want to extend our services. We want to reach more people. We know not everybody wants to be on a committee. They just are not interested. So we've got 3 roles that we are really promoting within ARQ going forward. We're talking about our promoters. There's a sheet on the promoters, not an onerous task. A promoter in the village just make sure that every resident in the village knows about ARQRV. They visit new members or give them an introduction letter, give them one of our brochures, and just introduce them to ARQ so that people do, when they move into the village, know who we are. We've also looking to extend by having special advisors. Now, a specialist advisor would be somebody who's got expertise in a particular subject, and I'm just happy to have ARQ committee member contact them and say, we have had a question about insurances, or we've got a question about electricity, or we've got a question about the NBN. Honestly, I'm getting so many questions about the NBN, I can't answer those questions, but questions about tax, questions about, tax is not our issue, but lots of questions we get which are outside the purview of what ARQRV does. So if you've got any special expertise and you would like to put up your hand just to be on our specialist committee, special advisor register, we would love to have you put up your hand and be a contact for us if we have any questions to ask. And then we've got the expert contributors. Now, if you would like to write a newsletter, we're looking at extending and doing a monthly newsletter going forward. Connect will still stay just connected with the Retirement Village Act and Retirement Village Matters, but we'd like to connect with our membership on broader issues, particularly aged care going forward. If you think you could write a newsletter, that'll just be an e-newsletter that will go out every month. If you come from an adult education background, you were a teacher, worked in TAFE, have worked with adults, understand how to run groups. We're looking at people more spread around Brisbane, available to do village visits, and we'll give you training around that. But you do need to have an educator background to start off with. And then we're always happy to look for somebody who can help us with our website management, be involved with setting, and maintaining our website for us. So you will see all of that. Again, if you think you can assist us and would like to contribute, I promise you don't have to sit on a committee meeting every month, but just really grateful if you could join us. So thank you very much for that, and that's my report for this year. Moving on, I'll invite Les Amble. Les is the treasurer of the ARQRV committee. And let me tell you, it's like every other treasurer is really stingy with the money.
Good morning, everybody. So you should all have a copy of the annual report at the table. So I'm going to speak to that. The accounts for financial year 2024-25 show a net loss of $95,547, which was a better result than the budgeted loss of $140,909. Our income was $13,894, better than budgeted, due primarily to additional support funding received from COTA for our joint participation in the Energy for Seniors project. Our subscriptions were 4,291, better than budget, and the resident committee support desk subscriptions were also $1,368 better. Overall, our subscriptions were 8,725, less than in 23-24, although the support desk income was $827 higher. We also received the final tranche of the 4-year BCC grant of $29,682, and we are extremely grateful to the Department of Housing for its continued support of our association, and we would ask our guests to pass on our appreciation to the department. The grants that we received allow the association to expand on its support and education of residents and potential residents in retirement villages. That assistance also flows to operators and village managers, particularly this year with the introduction of the new regulations. Our operating expenditure was $31,468 under budget at $290,879. Our staff costs were $5,023 under budget at $178,298. Our staff costs will reduce in 25-26 as a result of the reorganising of the office functions. The other major expenditures were in IT, $11,898, our newsletter production and postage at $10,142, and our office lease of $18,218. As Judy may mention later, we have explored the possibility of relocating to a smaller office, but have postponed further consideration until later this year. Village visit travel costs of $3,722 were expended by 3 members of the committee, who between them visited 26 villages during the year to provide information and assistance to resident committees. At the end of June, our balance sheet shows that our net assets were $304,009, which included 4 term deposits totaling $235,146. The 25-26 budget predicts a loss of $21,036 after allowing for the provision of a BCC grant that has been signalled. The AOTOB has an essential role to play in the progress of the retirement village industry. That could not be more important than it is at this time, as there is so much for us to do to ensure that our residents are fully informed of how their villages operate and the changes that we are seeing in respect to the regulations, aged care and rentals in our villages. We also continue to provide education and assistance to seniors who are considering moving into villages. As I've said, we are most grateful to the Department of Housing for their financial support, which has assisted us to play that vital role in our industry. Thank you. There's no questions.
Come on, someone, you better ask.
The Residential Tenancies Authority, does their legislation affect ARQRV and residents' villages?
Does the RTA, Residential Tenancies Authority, have any impact on retirement villages?
No, not at this stage. No.
Yeah.
No. It's probably something that the department may be able to address better than we can actually, and I'm sure Catherine will be talking about rental tenants.
Yeah, they do work with some aspects of
Yeah.
different residents' tenancies, but I'm just not sure about this one.
It depends on the type of agreement, whether they are actually recognised under the Retirement Village Act. So I think Catherine might expand more on that later. Yeah.
But I'll find out. Yeah.
There are some agreements that don't allow the residents to be recognised under Retirement Village Act. So therefore, we can't play a role in those situations. So I'd like to move a motion in respect to our auditor. The motion being that David Unwin Accountant, CPA, Proprietary Limited, Morayfield, be appointed as auditor of the Association for financial year 2025-26. Could we have a seconder? Meg's got a seconder. Clark. All in favour? Thank you.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. No, we do that later. Okay, I'll move on to the executive director. Thanks very much, Les. I thought you would have given him a harder time, honestly. I'd like to welcome Jodie Gorrell now. She's the Executive Director of ARQ, and Jodie will talk about the work that we've done in the last 12 months.
Thank you, Judy. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity to provide you with an update of what ARQRV has. Is that better? Yeah. Is that okay? I never do this well. But anyway, to provide a business update for what we have been achieving over the last 12 months at ARQ. So to use Judy's words, we've used the last 12 months to get the house in order, so to speak. We have reviewed our operational expenses in areas to reduce costs that have been identified, resulting in improved margins that Les talked about. We have invested in updating our client management system aimed at long-term sustainability. Functionality includes integration to our accounting system, email reporting, campaign tracking, so the platform will reduce manual workloads, so we won't need as much people power, so to speak, and will improve our data accuracy. BC, our Building Consumer Confidence Funding, to echo Les's words, the continuation of this funding has allowed ARQRV to continue our important work, supporting our members and residents committees. We have an application submitted for the Gambling Community Benefit Fund, round 124, so that's still under review, so fingers crossed everyone. So we are also working to continue other grant opportunities, which suits our business. And of course, our ongoing partnership with Council on the Ageing. Thank you, Lisa, for coming along today to deliver the Energy for Seniors program. So we're currently delivering phases 1 to 4. So anybody that's hasn't been up to see the table at the back, I would urge you to have a look if you are interested. So we're talking about concessions, rebates and supports, energy efficiencies, smart meters and how to read your energy bill. So if you, the program is winding up in December, so we've only got a short period of time left to deliver sessions at your village, but if you're interested, please come and let me know. We'd be very happy to come and visit. So far, we have, Judy and I have shared this information with over 3,000 people in retirement villages. There's been 14,000 people reached with this work across the whole project. And over 50,000 hard copy resources have gone out. That's these that are up the back, which have all got the ARQRV branding on them. So our reach has been huge being part of this project, which is really good. So thank you to Lisa, my partner in crime. We've visited villages in Townsville, even went out to Charters Towers a few weeks ago and met a few residents out there that lived in a retirement village. We've been to Rockhampton, Bundaberg, We're heading to Cairns in a week, speaking to other people in retirement villages, so we're really looking forward to that. So as I said, if any of you are interested, please feel free to come up and speak to Lisa or myself. We've got new collaborations. Thank you, James, for coming along today. So let's watch this space. These partnerships and other future opportunities bring added value to our members through exclusive access to resources, events, or other events that might be of interest to you. We continue to focus on our quality and consistency across all back-of-house procedures. We've introduced new policies to improve our operational clarity and compliance, including the delegations of authority procedure, feedback and complaints policy and procedure, information management, and an employee handbook, just to name a few. Almost, Judy.
No, plenty of time.
Workplace health and safety. Recent workplace health and safety initiatives include enrolling in the Injury Prevention and Management Program. We've updated our risk assessments and improved reporting protocols. So these efforts aim to ensure a safe, supportive environment for both staff and our members. We undertook a task analysis where we developed new role descriptions and introduced the permanent part-time Member Support Administration Officer role. Welcome, Vicky. And of course, thank you so much to Pauline, who's always so consistent and supportive. Really appreciate that. We renamed the NSO to ARQRV Promoter. You'll see some more information, as Judy said, on the tables about that, which better reflects the role requirements and duties, the name. We have currently over 60 APs that do the work for ARQ, getting the word out. So we really appreciate the support that they provide. I would also like to finish by adding a personal thank you to Judy for her leadership of ARQ. She's a fabulous person to work under, so I really appreciate her sharing her knowledge to me. And of course the other management committee members that are here. And a special thank you to Brian, you'll be sorely missed. And an excellent, a really good thank you goes out to Ray Jordan for sharing his wealth of knowledge with me about the Retirement Village Act. Without him, I don't think I would have the knowledge I do today. So thank you all very much again.
Has anyone got any questions of Jodie about the work that we've been doing? As you can see, the work that she has taken on would have been absolutely impossible for me to do, as well as the other hands-on village work that I do and working with industry and government. So I am so grateful and really thankful that we've been able to get Jodie on board. And one of the things that I was really keen about, you all would know that in our villages that the population is ageing. You know, we're all trying really hard for that not to happen, I know. But, you know, it just keeps happening no matter what we do. And so, and you also probably all know the difficulties that you are having in your villages now to get people to volunteer for your residence committees and your social clubs and all those other things that happen in villages and really wouldn't happen as well without resident involvement. The same was happening in ARQ. I could not see us going forward being able to sustain the workload that we carry if we didn't have somebody younger to carry some of that load. I mean, that's the only reason we got you, Jodie.
It's not very often that I'm called young either, so I'll take that. I'll accept that.
So Jodie was part of our ongoing sustainability plan. She was there to make sure that, you know, going forward, the committee will always continue. The committee will always continue as residents of a retirement village. That's never going to change. We need that lived experience of people in a retirement village. But all this other background work and office work, office management work was something that as volunteers, suddenly I was becoming less and less willing to take on that expanded role to run the office. And so it's really great that Jodie will be there to just support the committee in all of its sort of back of house functions as we go forward. So, you know, really looking forward to having Jodie's involvement in, as she settles down into the role, expanding into the other areas. So you may see Jodie doing village visits, moving forward or getting involved in other areas. But, you know, please be sure that we will always have, the committee will always be residents of a retirement village. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for Jodie. No? Oh, you're all really quiet this today. Thank you very much, Jodie. Okay, and now it's my great pleasure to call on the Department of Housing to provide their update to what is happening in the sector. Now, you will have questions for Catherine, I'm sure. If you haven't, I'll give you questions that you can ask. So I'm not sure who all is coming up, but I'll hand it over to them.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Firstly, thank you, ARQRV, for having us. We always love to come and chat at the AGM. I've just asked all these people to come up with me because I want to introduce you to them. They've not been to one of your AGMs before, and we've had a bit of a change of staff, so you may not have met some of these people if any of you do interact with our department. So I want to introduce you to Pat. Pat is the manager of our investigations team. This is Steve. Steve is the team leader for our investigations team. And this is Katie, who is the team leader for our registrations team. So I just wanted you to put some faces to the people who work in the department and who you may or may not have contact with down the track, just so you know that there's people behind the emails and things that we send out to people. Thank you.
Feelings.
Yep, they have feelings and everything. They're real people. And in all honesty, I think sometimes some of the people we deal with forget that there are real people behind the emails. So there you go, you've seen their faces. I forgot to bring my glasses up. Hang on, I'm going to get my glasses. I looked at my facts and thought I can't see them. Okay, so firstly, we're from Regulatory Services. So Regulatory Services is Department of Housing and Public Works. We are a relatively small team considering the amount of work that we cover across the state. So we regulate all retirement villages in Queensland, but also residential parks, also residential services, which is boarding house and supported accommodation. And we also do community housing. So we do a lot of work across the state for different accommodation services. Yeah, well, that's us. The role that we have, we accept complaints from residents and we action complaints. We action inquiries from residents and operators and other industry stakeholders. And we also do basically some planned compliance work as well. So in terms of every year, for example, your retirement village has to lodge their annual financial statement with our unit. And we will go through and review a certain number of those financial statements every year just to see, to get a snapshot of what the industry is looking like at the time and to get a snapshot of what the compliance levels are looking like for the documentation that we look at. And now, in addition to financial statements, we also receive a copy of the quantity surveyor reports as well. So that's another thing that we have started looking at as well. So I thought I'd start off today with just some fun facts about retirement villages. So I thought I'd start with the biggest villages in Queensland. Does anybody know who which the biggest village is in Queensland? Any ideas? Anyone other than Danielle? Danielle, what's the biggest village in Queensland? It is. It's Forest Grove, Retirement Living Durack. They have 626 accommodation units. I thought you'd find that interesting. The next biggest one, yep, Danielle knows. Yep, yes, Danielle. No, you don't know. Is Earlhaven Retirement Village in Narain, 479 accommodation units. So we've got some pretty big villages in Queensland, followed by Bellflower in Sippy Downs, 461. I'm just giving you the top 5. Carlisle Gardens in Townsville, 458 units. Greensill Resort in Albany Creek, 408. So they're your top 5 of the biggest retirement villages in Queensland. So then I thought I better say what the smallest are. Anybody? Any ideas on the smallest? The smallest one has five retirement village units. It's Pioneers in Longreach. Okay, then we've got Tallowwood Retirement Village in Crow's Nest. They've got 6 retirement village units. Then we've got Bly. They've got 8. Elandra Village in Warana, 8. And Amaru Retirement Village in Gatton, they've got 8 retirement village units. So you can see retirement villages across the state vary immensely. And I thought that was just a good way of pointing out that you can have a very different situation, which one piece of legislation has to cover, depending on the size of your village, who's operating it, whether there's people on site all the time, what sort of services are offered, very, very different. The total number of villages in Queensland at the moment is 333. And they cover 34,621 accommodation units. So, and we estimate that as being about 48,469 people living in retirement villages in Queensland at the moment. So I thought that was just some interesting fun facts for you. Over the last 12 months, we've had 3 new registrations for retirement villages. And I thought I'd give you some fun facts about some of those as well, just so that you can see what the new retirement villages coming into the industry are like. So one of our new ones, you only have to be 55 years old to enter, which I thought was interesting. So a lot of villages over the past few years have been raising their entry age. Now we're starting to see some lowering their entry age. It's leasehold tenure. When it's completed, it will have 200 independent living units, mostly 2 or 3 bedroom units, but they are offering 10 4-bedroom units in their village. They will be situated within buildings that are up to 6 stories high, and the price range to move in is estimated at this point to be anywhere from 594,000 up to 2.7 million. For the top ones, I would say they would be the 4-bedroom units on top of a building. That's my guess. And exit fees ranging between 25 and 30% of the resale value. So the new ingoing contribution on the resale of the unit. So another one, just interesting, 65 years to enter, licensed tenure, 169 units with 10 care suites. Situated within 3 multi-storey buildings. How many people here are in multi-storey retirement living? Okay, yeah, there's a few. Obviously, that's a lot of the new villages now, multi-storey living. This one, the scheme operator is a home care services provider, and the price range for this one from 725, so that's the lowest, up to 2.5 million. And I've just got some fun facts about one more. This one, which I found really interesting, 50 years plus to enter. So you only have to be 50 to enter into this one. Leasehold tenure, 170 independent living units, only 2 and 3 bedroom units, no 1 bedrooms. 3 multi-level buildings, maximum 5 stories, no personal or home care services. Offering a capital gain option. Yeah, that's some fun facts about the new villages that are coming in. So for me, I see some interesting contract developments that are coming through the industry at the moment. I feel like we're starting to see a bit less capital gain options being offered to industry at the moment. There are some changes and some details I think that it's important to make sure you're aware of for people. If you've got friends looking to move into a retirement village, make sure they have a good look at their contract. There's always some interesting contract developments around additional fees and changes to how capital gain is treated, whether your exit fee is calculated, including your capital gain or not, something to be aware of. Another interesting thing that we've seen come in one of the new images, restaurant vouchers. So part of your general services charge, $35 per week goes towards a restaurant voucher which the resident can use at which the resident can use at the village restaurant. So if there's 2 people in the unit, then there'll be 2 lots of that $35 credit. And if you don't use it each week, it just carries forward. And so after a period of time, you can ask your friends and family or anyone to come in and you can shout them dinner if you haven't used your credit vouchers in your restaurant. So I thought that was an interesting development, and I thought it was an interesting way of getting people to attend the community facilities within the village as well. So just interesting, something different. Redevelopment plans. So we've been seeing a few redevelopment plans coming through regulatory services recently, and I don't know if anyone here is in a village which is currently being redeveloped. Anyone? No? Yeah, there's a couple. So during the financial year, regulatory services saw 9 redevelopment plans come through. Of those, only 2 needed to be approved by the chief executive. So when a redevelopment happens in a village, the scheme operator must prepare a plan, a proposed redevelopment plan, which describes all about the redevelopment, how they're going to manage it, how they're going to manage if they need to, if any residents need to move at any point during the redevelopment, if it will affect fees, what will happen with the roads, what will happen with dust, what will happen with noise, all of that sort of stuff. So they have to put that to the residents, and the residents vote on it, and if the residents get a 75% or greater vote, then that plan is accepted. So then you've got an approved redevelopment plan. So when that comes to the department, we just look at it and go, yep, that's great, it's approved. We have a look at it to make sure that it complies with the legislation. And that's all we need to do. However, there are some cases where residents do not approve that redevelopment plan, and it comes to the department for approval. And that's a big job. So there's, we take that job very seriously because there's obviously a reason why residents have voted against it. So over the past 12 months, we've had 2 of those. When that happens, we write out to every resident in the village and we ask them for their feedback. And so we received lots of pieces of feedback. Katie knows all about that. She's had a look at lots of feedback about an unapproved redevelopment plan. So just know if it happens in your village, if you vote against it, we take that process very seriously, and we must, under the Act, we must consider all submissions made by residents in relation to that redevelopment plan. The same can be said for closure plans. So the department has been seeing quite a few closure plans recently as well. So there have been a few villages that have been flagging their impending closure. So we had 7 retirement villages lodge closure plans with the department. At least 3 of those were transitioning to rental villages to continue operating, but operating as a rental only village. So that would be rentals under the RTA legislation, as was mentioned a little bit earlier. The largest of those had 120 retirement village accommodation units, and the smallest, which lodged a closure plan with us, only 7. So it was a small village. So what we've seen is there have been a few older style villages, particularly villages that only had 1-bedroom accommodation units. We're finding it difficult to continue selling those units within today's market. There wasn't a market for them. So in those cases, a decision may need to be made to close down a retirement village scheme. And often it's done by transitioning to rental contracts over time. So although we may have received a closure plan for those villages, it may take 10 years for that village to close because in many cases the operators will wait until there are no more retirement village contracts remaining in the village. And so people can live there and they see their contract through to the end until they decide to terminate, or if they pass away in the village, they can remain there, and then the operator will seek to deregister the scheme once the last contract has ended. Now on to compliance matters. We manage a lot of compliance matters through our unit. We currently have one matter before the Magistrates Court, which is not yet decided, but should be decided in November. So current matters of interest, rentals. So we were talking about rentals in retirement villages. So yes, Les, I am going to talk a little bit about rentals. It's a topic of interest for residents and operators alike. It's become more of a topic of interest over the past 12 to 18 months. Particularly, I think, due to a number of retirement village closures where they have adopted that method of transitioning from retirement village contracts to rental contracts. So often if there's plans to cease the retirement village scheme, they'll wind down the village operations by offering incoming residents a rental contract rather than a retirement village contract. But what that does is it keeps the village vibrant and operating while retirement village contracts run their natural life. In addition to closures, rentals in villages may be offered when the sales market is low. So at times when the market slows down, nobody wants to have lots of empty units in a retirement village. So in some of those cases, and it's not the case at the moment, I think the market is very strong in retirement villages at the moment, but we have been through periods before where we had larger numbers of rentals just to make sure that we kept residents in villages, and it also obviously is a stream of income for the General Services Fund. There are also some operators where offering a small number of rentals can be part of the company ethos. So it might be that they like to keep 1 or 2 units available for people who may not be able to afford that style of living other than being able to rent. And often they choose a unit which is not marketable. So it might be that nobody wants to buy the 1-bedroom units in the village, so they might be the ones that get offered as a rental. So we recognise in reg services that there are villages that are offering rentals. Those rental agreements generally are outside the Retirement Villages Act. So what that means is the residents who sign onto those rental agreements under the residential tenancies legislation are not able to vote, for example, if there is a special resolution vote required, and normally wouldn't sit on a resident committee. And in fact, there are some villages that have 2 separate committees where there's a committee for rental tenants and there's also a committee for retirement village residents. Questions have been raised with reg services from time to time about contracts created under the Retirement Villages Act, which I would call a rental style agreement. So they're marketed as a retirement village contract. And we've seen quite a few versions of these. So one area of interest in relation to some of those agreements is around the fact that the Retirement Villages Act doesn't contemplate residence contracts with expiry dates. So you would know when you enter into your residence contract, you basically have an expectation that this is it. Hopefully this is my last move unless I have to go into residential aged care. And whereas some of the rental style agreements that we've seen that have been entered into under the Retirement Villages Act may have a 2-year term, for example. So we are basically seeking some advice around some of those styles of contracts to determine whether or not they belong under the Retirement Villages Act or whether they should be treated as a residential tenancy style agreement. Another area of interest for us, real estate commissions. So that's something that keeps coming up from time to time. Where a real estate commission is charged for the sale of a retirement village unit by a company which is associated to the scheme operator, but not the scheme operator itself. So under the Act is clear that a scheme operator must not charge a former resident a fee, charge or commission, however described, for selling the resident's right to reside in the resident's accommodation unit. So that's something that we're grappling with, where a separate company has been created, which is clearly not the scheme operator company, but if it is an associated company and is charging commissions for sales. So another one of the areas that is a little bit unsure that we're looking at. Currently also proportionate cost calculations. This might get a little bit complicated, but essentially it's the charges that residents are charged after they terminate their contract. So if somebody passes away or moves on to aged care or another village, you are required to continue paying your general services fund contributions and your maintenance reserve fund contributions for a period of time after you leave. So for 90 days, you continue to pay those full fees, and then it's proportioned for 6 months after that 90-day period. So the proportion that is where you share those fees with the scheme operator, we're finding that there is a lack of clarity within the industry with some of the operators about how to make that calculation. And we've put out a guideline in 2022, but we're still finding that there are operators that are not calculating that correctly, which brings me to another point, that sometimes we're finding that exit entitlement statements are not clear enough and there's not enough information being provided to say how things are being calculated. So that's another area that we are looking into. Another one, valuations. So valuations sort of came to the fore, particularly in relation to some of the closures that we had been looking at. Recent reviews of a number of valuations indicated that valuers were looking at factors such as the fact that a unit should be valued as is, assuming no reinstatement was to take place in the case of a closure, whereas the Act requires that a valuer must take into account the following things. So when a valuer is doing a valuation, they must have regard to submissions and responses from the scheme operator and the resident or former resident. So for your information, when a valuer is engaged to do a valuation, they must advise the scheme operator and the resident or former resident that they may give the valuer a submission. So, and I think it's important that residents' families are aware that this is a requirement. A valuer must tell them that they can make a submission about the valuation of that unit. The valuer must conduct the valuation on the basis that the retirement village is operating and will continue to operate normally. So this is really important if we're talking about closures. And they must have regard to the amount of exit fee payable by and capital gain sharing arrangements applying to the former resident. And they must not have regard to a different exit fee that would be payable by, or a different capital gain sharing arrangement that would be payable by anybody buying into the village. So if the outgoing resident's contract is quite different to the new contract, they must just think about the existing contract first. So our unit is looking at putting some information out to operators about that they might be able to hand to a valuer to make sure that valuers are aware of their obligations in that regard. And I'm almost done. Current major investigations. What are we looking at? Well, the major investigations we've currently got underway relate to scheme operator failing to pay an exit entitlement to a former resident when they were required to do so, and in fact trying to enter into agreements to pay it over time and all sorts of interesting things, but essentially paying it very much later than it should have been. Scheme operator using funds from the GSF, MRF and CRF for purposes other than intended for those funds. For example, funding the construction of some new units in another village. Yeah. Failing to hold new resident ingoing contributions in trust until the cooling off period ends or until a new unit under construction is suitable for habitation. And also, again, once again, calculation of ongoing resident contributions after termination. So there's sort of some of the major issues that we're looking at the moment. It's always interesting in our office, let me tell you, and there's always new things coming up. What are our upcoming projects? The Village Comparison Document Online project is still going. I feel like I've been talking about this for the last 3 years. But we've got some further development happening, and we're hoping that additional developments will be ready for testing in about the next week or two. And we've got some very dedicated scheme operators who are helping us out with that, and they do the testing for us and tell us what the problems are. We are looking to address some technical change requirements under the Retirement Villages Act, hopefully sometime next year. We're looking at some guidance material around valuations, as I was saying, wider spread compliance checks for calculation of proportionate costs, checking of village budgets to see how the industry went with the new financial reporting requirements. So we've seen a few of those budgets. We'll be looking to see a few more of those. Checking exit entitlement statements for information inclusions. As I said, I think we've seen a few that are just not providing enough information and people looking at it. And if it's your families who are looking at it after you've gone, they need to understand how things have been calculated. Otherwise, they're never going to know if that calculation has been done correctly. We're also seeking to effect changes to the state penalty enforcement regulation to enable infringement notices to be issued for additional new offences. So after all the changes that have come through the legislation over the last few years, we're looking to update those regulations so that we can issue infringement notices for about an extra 40 or so offence provisions under the Act. So that'll be exciting for us. We're really looking forward to that. And that's the interesting part of our work, right? It's okay to smile about that. And from a policy perspective, our policy area, so if you two put your hands up, Taff and Lisa, they are currently looking into any of the implications of the changes to the Aged Care Act. And if you've seen the Aged Care Act, it is just enormous. So they are getting their heads around that and making sure to see basically if we need to do any consequential amendments or anything like that. That's it from me. So I'm sorry that went for probably a little bit too long. We will hang around for a little while at the end like we normally do, and if anyone wants to come and ask us any questions, you're more than welcome.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Has anybody got any questions for Catherine? Of course, of course.
I thought I was going to get away.
I'm David Charles from Kapira Sanctuary. The first question was, you talked about changing units to rentals. Can a scheme operator change units to rentals against the wishes of the residents?
I can tell you that there are many retirement village schemes that are offering rentals. It's not something that has gone out to residents for a vote. But what happens is if there is a unit offered as a rental unit within your village, the rent that is paid, part of that rent has to go into your general services fund and the maintenance reserve fund. So that unit still remains part of the retirement village scheme, and fees must be paid on behalf of that unit. Yep.
So the short answer is yes, they can.
Yes, yes.
The stream of income, you're talking about if units can't be sold, it interrupts the contribution to the general services fund. But not really, does it? Because was that a slip of the tongue? Or?
Oh, no. So if there is a low market or a slow market and units can't be sold, the scheme operator has to contribute to the general services fund and maintenance reserve fund on behalf of a vacant unit. But if they can put a rental tenant into that unit, so if it's been empty for 18 months, if they can put a rental tenant into that, obviously it reduces the scheme operator's cost. So it makes it a more viable business option for them, I guess.
Yeah, but the contribution to the general services fund for the first 90 days, the ex-tenant pays the whole lot.
Yes.
Is it then, where does it come 50-50
from 90 days to 180 days?
It's shared in the same proportion that the operator and the outgoing resident share the ingoing contribution on the resale of the right to reside. That's the calculation that they have to do.
Okay. The guidelines issued to the industry, are they available to the public?
Yes, they're on the website. So if you literally search Retirement Village Regulatory Guideline, it will probably come up.
Okay, thank
Can
you.
I just say something? ARQ has always given links. When new guidelines are issued, ARQ in its communication with residents has always given links to those guidelines. So you can always find the links on information that we've put out.
Graham Walker is the name. I'm seeking your interpretation of Section 107. Historically, the operator where I reside has interpreted 107 in such a manner that only staff who are actually on award wages are classified under 107, whereas management, administrators, etc., are excluded. This year, the operator has decided that they can put all staff under Section 107. They tell us that they have put management on a special agreement that enables them to classify them as being under an award. Do you have an opinion on this situation?
So the original way they were doing it sounded correct to me, but if those staff members have been put onto a legitimate agreement that complies with Section 107, which does talk about types of agreements which are acceptable or are considered to be under Section 107, then it might be okay. So we would probably have to have a closer look at what type of agreement that is and whether it meets the requirements under Section 107.
So just changing the fact of putting management on an agreement quite possibly complies with the Act.
It could, depending on the type of agreement. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just add to that?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, hang on, there's one coming behind you as well.
As a corollary to that question, there are operators that are now moving all of the salaries from 107 into 106. So is that allowable?
I would assume that they're doing that only if they have no staff on awards, if they're not paying staff under a particular award. So if you think about it this way, under Section 107, the 107 expenses are the types of expenses where an operator may not have control over whether they will go up or not. So for example, if an award changes and if there is an award increase, the operator has no say over whether those people's wages increase. They have to increase it in accordance with the award. Same with rates and insurance, things like that. That's why those items are under Section 107, because the increases are something that is outside their control.
So in other words, what we're really saying is only in 106 can the staff that aren't covered by awards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Back again on that question, keeping an ex-Lend-Lease units, villages, all have their budget as salaries and wages, one line. I've questioned them on it, and they've said, "Oh yes, we're looking at that. Something will happen, but it doesn't. It hasn't, and isn't going to." So they're doing it now. They're putting salaries and wages. I tried to raise this issue at a liaison officer or representatives, whatever, scheme meeting. And I wanted to discuss there, Judy, and you closed me down by saying I could not expect to be shown the contract of our manager. Yes, you did.
Yeah, I'm saying you can't be expected to be shown the contract of your manager.
No, and I agree. Yeah. So there are privacy limits. And I know that there were some concerns across the industry that if, for example, everybody who works in the village is under an award and there's one person that is not paid under an award and their wage sits standalone in section 106, then it's, it could feel like a bit of a privacy issue. So if your village manager's wage is just sitting standalone and everybody knows exactly how much they earn, and they want to question it, or, So I do understand that there were concerns there. I know that there are a lot of villages working towards making sure that they're reporting those things correctly, but they may not be quite there yet. But we are happy to follow up, and we're probably looking at, or we have talked about for a while, doing a mail-out reminder just about staff wages and things like that in terms of the new financial reporting requirements. This is not new. This has been around for a long time. It was just one of those things that slipped under the radar for a while.
Well, very,
The department's position on payroll tax.
So Les and I had a quick chat about this earlier. I agree that we're probably not going to talk about it at this stage. So I literally was having a conversation about payroll tax and whether residents should be responsible for a company's payroll tax through the general services charges with one of our finance people this morning. We had a stance. We are looking at it. We want to get some good advice just to make sure that we are responding to this question correctly. So I'm going to avoid that question for today.
Oh, no, there's two more.
You can hog the floor, Liz.
Can I just put one last question to you? The administration fees are starting to creep, and I'm wondering whether the department is giving any consideration to what limits can be applied to administration fees, because at the moment it's totally open-ended, and we are starting to see little things starting to creep into administration fees that weren't there before.
So you're talking in terms of financial reporting, so then in the financial statements and things like that, where they have a line item as administration. That's probably where we're going to look at the expectation that there should be a bit more of a breakdown. So if it's a massive amount, then the new regulations really require that there should be a breakdown to give an explanation for what costs are going into that one line item. So that's something that we'll be looking at, yes.
And the last question.
Hello. I've driven down from the Sunshine Coast. I moved into a retirement village at Curramundi Gardens, which was established in 1994. And then in 2021, they built a new section with 15 new units. Up until this year, nobody has ever questioned budgets, because they've never formed a residential committee. But we've got to the stage, we got an increase in our monthly fees this year of $100, which really was a shock to all the tenants. When that happened, I knew about the association. I rang Judy and she was just so wonderful, that gave me a lot of information about this association, which I joined within 24 hours. Because sadly, the average age in the village where I live is about 85. I love where I live, but this has really been a huge shock to a lot of these residents there. So quite a few of them have asked me, very confused about rental assistance, because the fees now, when we brought in at our new section, Brenda and I haven't even been there 2 years, my increase in our monthly fees have gone from about 135 within 2 years a month. So I understand the rent assistance with some of the older tenants that bought back those years ago and they paid under 265,000. The minimum that we can buy in now is maybe 470 when I went in there, but now the units have really been priced a lot higher than that. Some of the tenants can get rent assistance, but they've never been told about that. After coming here today, I will put my hand up. I really believe in this association. I believe that the older people in there really need to be encouraged to have this sort of thing on board, to give them a lot of, legal information. I know.
Put your microphone a bit closer.
Is that better?
Yeah. That's better.
Yeah. So there's a big difference. I know there's the Retirement Act and I know there's the Manufacturing Act to do with rent assistance. A few of them have said, Terry, we live in a retirement village. Our fees are getting as high or sometimes higher now than some of the other lifestyle villages a month. We don't own the land. In a manufactured home agreements, you get rent assistance because of the land. Now, we don't own the land. We don't own our unit. Auscare own our unit. But the fees are going up and up and up, and rental assistance is a big issue. And some can get it and some can't. So that's something I really need to find out about. Thank you.
And I hate to say it, but that's probably something that I actually can't help you with. But I do take that on board. I think that there's a lot of information that a lot of residents could use that is not always very easy to find. So, all right, I'll hand over. If anybody wants to talk to us afterwards, we will wait around for a little while afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. On that rental assistance, I'll just say that it has been looked at a national level by the Property Council. Rent assistance is a federal issue, it's not a state. Retirement village is a state, so it's different legislation, different governments, and so on. As far as I know at this point in time, Danielle may be able to just say something very quickly about it, but at this point in time, I don't see that anybody has had any success in getting retirement villages included in rental assistance. It's just not happening. And it's not for want of trying. It's just up to the federal government to change its policy around that. And I don't think at this point it's going to look at it. Anyway, thank you very much, Catherine. As usual, very much appreciated. Now I'd like to invite Danielle Lim to speak. Catherine has been speaking at everything from a legislative point of view. Danielle's going to address it much more from industry.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for having me. My name's Danielle Lim. I'm genuinely chuffed to be here. I feel quite honoured to have this level of insight and to be able to contribute, and I welcome, absolutely welcome any questions. So can I just say, by the way, how fun were the fun facts from the department? Oh my gosh. So when Judy asked me to speak, I thought, what, a microphone and a room full of captive people that want to hear about retirement villages? This is literally Christmas Day. But I decided that I would cap my comments to just talk about 3 main trends. I do have some follow-up points about some of the questions from the last session as well. So if I had to say what has the last year been, if you have that moment of reflection, I would distill it down to 3 things. So one is budgets, the second is disputes, and the third is, I suppose, the built form. You might know from my name, Danielle Lim, that there's something not quite right because I've got red hair and round eyes. But I married the name. So my husband's family are Chinese. So Chinese New Year is really important to me, and the zodiac, well, it's important to his family, so I follow it. And the Chinese zodiac is important too. Incidentally, does anyone know what this year is? It's the year of the horse. I'm a horse, so you can tell how old I am. But if I was to translate that into retirement village world, this would literally be the year of the budget, and we would have a sign for it, and it would be amazing. I have had more budget questions in the last 12 months than I've had in the last 40-something years of my life. So everybody is thinking about it. Everybody is wanting to know, are we doing the right thing? Is the operator doing the right thing? What should happen here? So I suppose a couple of points. The first is I want to assure the people here that the questions that I'm getting from operators indicates that they genuinely want to do the right thing. So, for example, the admin fee query that we had before, there is absolutely a new requirement to give more information than we've ever had before. So I'm seeing operators draft more information. They're wanting to give a level of transparency. At least some are. Obviously not all, but at least some are. That's really great because it puts more information in all of your laps and enables you to ask more pointed, relevant questions and really be involved. And not everyone's an accountant, and you don't have to be an accountant. But if something's not quite right, you've got an amazing association that you can say, is this right? Is it not right? Section 106 and 107 have always been a constant source of query. I would say there's a lot of focus on these wages issues, and just FYI to clarify that last comment, what the wording of 107 says, isn't it disappointing that I didn't know it off by heart? I'm embarrassed, don't tell anyone. So 107 says that you can have an increase above CPI if the increase is in salary or wages, so that's the term, of a person engaged in the retirement villages operation and payable under an award, certified agreement, or other industrial instrument made, approved, certified, or continued in force. So that's pretty broad, and that might give you some explanation as to why we're seeing these different types of agreements come through. To Catherine's point, 107 is really to capture those types of things that are beyond the control of the operator. I think, though, we're missing the point. So wages are wages, and just like everything else, it's getting a lot more expensive to have the things that you need. As the cost of living increases, so too do wages, and so too does the cost of a real quality manager. So you might be able to get a manager quite cheap, but what sort of manager do you want in your village? Thank you. What I would say, though, is don't just focus on that. Look at the broader items. And the big ticket item I see coming through in that area is council rates. So did anyone see the big media, what would you call it, fury around Cairns? Yeah? Okay, so so just for anyone who's not up to speed with it, what 107 means is if councils increase their rates, then that increase can shoot straight through to you. No approval, no anything, no regard to how much money you have, just straight through. So Cairns increased their council rates, and there was a big backlash, and unfortunately it wasn't ultimately successful. The increase is standing today. And I think the biggest fear is that there will be a bit of contagion effect. So we have already seen, for example, I live on the Gold Coast. Side note, I have a private campaign for Gold Coast to be to retirement villages like Miami in America. So if anyone wants to come to the Gold Coast, to our lovely retirement villages, call me. But in this year's budget, we saw our mayor create a brand new category of rating for retirement villages, which is going to result in considerable increases. It didn't warrant one article in the Gold Coast Bulletin. I even wrote to them, but I didn't listen. It's going to be increased over 8 years, but I would be looking at those types of things because that's what really is coming through and that you will see and it will hit your bottom or your back pocket. The second issue that I mentioned was dispute resolution. So I have a law firm called DSL Law, but I also am a founder and director of a business called Senior Living Mediation. So I've noticed that in your AGM it said there are less disputes than ever before. I've had the exact opposite experience in my senior living mediation business. I have had more dispute resolution than ever before. The good news is that operators are paying for and proactively getting involved in mediation, which really does bring some harmony to villages. What I'm seeing in that front as well is operators are proactively training. So senior living mediation is being asked to come in and train managers and train operational staff to proactively stop disputes happening. And I think that's really positive in villages. The third item that I have seen is around the built form. So we heard some amazing fun facts. These are my observations. So one, I am receiving more queries from more people. The ageing population must look like some kind of opportunity for some people. So I'm seeing more non-operators looking to get into the industry. And I find that to be a little bit of a concern in some respects because retirement villages are different, they're special, they're ongoing communities, they're not a development to build and move on to. So it's important that we all take an education step in that. But some of the new villages that I'm seeing, to add to the fun facts, are amazing. So on the Gold Coast, we are preparing an application for registration of a new scheme. And it has, it's in a great location on the Gold Coast. The penthouse is currently marketed at $8 million. I know. There's a DMF on that. So you're paying a 35% exit fee. Like, isn't that phenomenal? Some of the general services that are being discussed in relation to that include 10 days on a yacht that has staff, private concierge. I'm saying to people, what does the concierge do? And the answer is everything. So as a person who writes contracts, it's really hard to say everything because I think, you know, there should be some limits. I'm also seeing, I'm also being involved in a lot of redevelopments. So we're seeing redevelopments come through and some operators are really trying to make sure that it doesn't upend residents or cause too much disruption. So they're looking to get an independent lawyer in, like myself, to provide support to residents. And I really applaud that approach because redevelopments are, I think, necessary in many respects, but how they're managed makes a tangible difference to residents' quality of life. All right, so I just wanted to give some additional comments to some of the points that were made and then take any questions. So I'm going to just throw myself in the hot water here and touch on all the hot button issues. So just before I do, Messenger, don't shoot me, okay? I'm very sensitive. So the first one is rentals. To the extent, I don't disagree with anything that the department has said or that you've said either. To the extent it's useful, let me add this to the conversation. There is no black and white rule in our Act that says if an operator wants to rent out a unit, they have to get the residents' approval. But having said that, I also don't think it's carte blanche. So I don't think that an operator can, for example, just wake up one day and start renting all the units and say, residents, you'll be fine with that, because there's a big difference. The answer of where consent is required is somewhere in the middle, and it's a question of fact and degree. So one of my favourite comments is it depends, and this is a very much it depends, but please don't accept a definite black or white answer on this. It needs consideration.
Can I say something, please?
One of my concerns, though, Danielle, and I suppose, is that the fact that there are renters in villages, and that is causing angst, and the residents who have bought into the village are actually being quite exclusive. They do not want renters in, and so we're seeing a lot of division in villages. That is not a good look for your village. That is not a comfortable place for a lot of residents to look at. So I just think we need to all take a deep breath and look at the people, the older people who have moved into your village, and look at how you can be inclusive to include them in your community, rather than trying to put up a block to be exclusive. So I just think that is something we can talk about renters in villages, but I think we also need to think about, we live in a community. We are getting older. We want a peaceful, quiet life. So I think that that it's two sides to that, that's all.
It really is quite an interesting issue, isn't it? I'd love to take a pulse of the people here. Could I ask you, if one day, if tomorrow you woke up in your village and there were, let's say, 50% renters, who would be a bit upset about that? If you woke up tomorrow and there was 5% renters, who would be a bit upset about that? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So just a couple of other points that I wanted to make. One is payroll tax. I appreciate the department getting advice. My thoughts on payroll tax, because I've over my career I've worked for large law firms, I've worked for large operators, I've worked for residents. So I've looked at the issue of what goes into a budget from a variety of different points. I've also worked around Australia, so I know how it works in different states. The standard position in Queensland is that the costs associated with running the village are included in your general services. And most operators that I've come across treat payroll tax as a cost related to a particular employee. For people who don't know, payroll tax is just another fabulous tax that the government imposes when an employer pays more than $1.3 million a year in wages. And the reason that upsets residents is obviously you don't pay $1.3 million in wages to the staff at your village. But I suppose the point of view, I think, to the extent that it's helpful from operators, is you want to move into a village that's part of a large portfolio, that has all of the benefits of the name and the brand and the organisation. And there are some costs associated with that, and payroll tax is one of the costs that that business has to pay in order to put that employee in your village. Whether or not that's fair, I'll step back on, but it is a cost an operator has to pay. So from a legal point of view, I would say it probably fits the mark to be a general service. If you were in New South Wales, it would absolutely not. So New South Wales, in their legislation, have specifically excluded the broader calculation, to the extent that's helpful. The last thing I wanted to weigh in on was a comment that you made, Les, which I hadn't heard before. So caps on corporate recharge or admin fees. That's really interesting. I've also seen admin fees go up, sometimes extraordinarily. I think for people who don't know what the admin fee is that I talk about. It's just a portion of head office costs related to the operation of a village. So it might be a portion of HR, or it might be a portion of IT. And there has to be a reason for that cost to be shunted back, and it might be based on number of employees in a village or number of computers or something like that. That's always been my approach. I would be really scared about there being a cap. And the reason I say that is because we've got villages, like from your fun facts, that are literally 5 units with probably nothing more than a common letterbox. But we've also got villages that have yachts and all the facilities in the world. Like, they're just completely different. So I think admin fees can be different as well. So the amount of input that head office provides could be hugely different from one village to the next. I think as long as it's thought about and you've got a clear explanation, then that should be the test, not the level of, not the number arbitrarily. So I'd like to invite any questions that anyone has. Yes, lady in green.
Would that also be, instead of classified as admin fees, management fees?
I haven't heard it called management fees. I've heard it called corporate head office charge. Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And so just on that, with the new financial regs, you should have a very clear breakdown of that in the budgets.
Yeah, okay. I also live on the Gold Coast. And
Do you want a carpool?
No, I caught the train.
Oh.
Yeah, but can you see more of our villages turning into like high-rise living?
Oh, 100%. So the question was, can you see more villages turning into high rises? The stats prove it. So there's a census that happens every year by PwC, and it talks about the new developments plus the number of vertical villages. And it's every new village that's coming to light, it's vertical. And the reason is there's a shortage of land. We don't want to live out the back of Burke, not all of us. We want to live near the amazing things, and in order for that to happen, we need to go up. There needs to be greater yield, so that's what we're going to see. It is a sign of the times, and we talk about villages like they're entirely separated from the world, but they're not. If you look at any community, if you look out the window, you'll see that by and large, any new home, retirement village or not, is likely to be vertical. Which village?
Amity Gardens.
Oh, lovely, lovely. I've spent some time there.
Yeah, so I can sort of see it be looked at eventually as a reinforcement.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So so Amity Gardens, Aveo, right? Yeah. So Aveo has a track record of some infill development, and they have certainly they understand the process, they're consultative. If something like that is going to happen, I think the step and the advice for anyone in the room is take a deep breath and stop and don't feel rushed and work out what it means for you. And if you're not comfortable, don't say yes. Even if all your neighbours are saying yes, if you're not comfortable, then just take the time, explain to the operator why it is, get the support you need, because it's your choice, it's your home.
Richard, just talking about that, the point that's just been made that vertical seems to be the new normal.
Yes.
It contradicts exactly what the Property Council said in their census findings.
I don't think so, but
I mean, one of the troubles is its interpretation of wording, but they say the proportion of new developments that are horizontal or single level increased to 71%, reflecting a shift towards non-metropolitan operators.
Right. My observation is it's going up.
I've heard that multiple times here, and it's just sort of interesting that there's a contradiction.
Depends where they're building, I suppose. If they're building on the coast, they're going to go up, aren't they?
They certainly say non-metropolitan, if we include the Gold Coast.
They haven't heard about my campaign.
I'd like to talk about the budgets. With my village, our budget for 25-26 has not appeared. Queensland, we're now into the first quarter and we don't even have interim budget somebody thought about. Maybe someone over there could answer this question. It's really important. It's becoming the last message we got from Queensland person was the 4th of August, and we haven't heard a word since from anybody. And I feel that head office in Sydney, like Natalie Patterson, wouldn't have a clue as to what's going on in Queensland. Well, she's going to be informed very soon.
Can I just ask what village? There. And sorry, which village is it? Or do you want to come and see me after? Okay.
I'm sorry to hear that. And I think, you know, you've been told a date and it's a little bit dated later than the start of the new financial year. And I think most residents are understanding that that happens. But when things don't happen when you're told, it can be disappointing.
According to the RB Act, which I know about, we're supposed to hopefully the budget about a fortnight before June 30th. And if you require a copy of the budget according to the Act, you put in your request about 4 weeks before.
So this is fabulous. Informed residents, you are entitled to your budget. You're entitled to ask for it before the start of the financial year. The operator is required to give a draft budget. This has been, as I said, year of the budget. So it is testing on operators and residents alike. Open communication and doing what you're supposed to do is important. I agree. I'm not defense messenger. I've got a question over here, so I'm just going to take over the Q&A section.
I probably should have asked the department, but I just.
Oh, I can take it over.
Thank you, thank you. I just wondered how you define redevelopment.
The question is, how do you define redevelopment? I love this because when it first came in, the definition was literally so broad that if you took a cards table out of a room and put in, I don't know, a coffee machine, that would be a redevelopment. So a redevelopment doesn't mean knocking down everything and building something huge. A redevelopment can be a complete refurb of a recreation deck. It can be a change of use of a manager's unit to an actual unit. It can be a change in the number of units. So it's, do you want to add? Is that okay?
I was going to read the definition.
Oh, here we go. Straight, here we go.
Under the Act, redevelopment of a retirement village includes the construction or demolition of an accommodation unit and the construction or demolition or the expansion or reduction in size or area of a building or structure located in the retirement village other than works of a minor nature, and the expansion or reduction in size or area of the retirement village. So if they take some land away or if they add some additional land, and a change of the use other than a minor change of a building or structure located in the retirement village, and anything else prescribed by regulation.
There's a comprehensive answer. I just realised there's one, not only am I just running Q&A now, I'm asking my own questions and answering them. Definition of control freak. So the point that you made before, what was your name? Terry. So Terry raised the point before about rents assistance, and I don't know, in the decades that I've been working in this industry, I've heard the same thing. I've been part of working groups. It's a consistent issue. I feel hopeful that something will happen, genuinely hopeful. What I can tell you is the Property Council and Ageing Australia, so our two peak bodies, are joining forces, talking about working together. Starting a conversation. Considering a conscious coupling in relation to this. And I think what that tells you is that industry bodies view this as a critical issue. They understand that it matters to you, it matters to their residents, it matters to communities. And I could not agree with you more that if I looked at somebody living in a manufactured home with all their construction methods and compared it to someone living in a retirement village, I couldn't physically see the difference apart from the money they're getting from Commonwealth rent assistance, and $260 whatever $1,000 is out of touch. Yeah.
So I would like to just mention my concerns. I'd love to have an opinion on this, where we're going in the next 5 years, because as most of us know, people are coming into our villages much older. Our village is not gated, and we are quite spread out, and we have a number of people that cannot make it down to our center. So it is not, you have to have independent living, but we have people who don't have that. So we have 87 units in ours. So not only do we find it difficult for committee members, but even functions that people can't come down to. I think within the next 5 years, we're going to be living like an aged care. And that really distresses me. Now, I don't know, I know the government pushes to have people stay in their own homes, but they do that, and then by the time they're ready to move out, they're going into retirement villages instead of aged care. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but it is very frustrating for those of us who would like to have the community and still want to be able to have committees and to do things in our villages, but we're not getting the help from any of the people that own, from the scheme operators.
Thank you for sharing that. Show of hands, is this a concern for anyone else? Yeah, okay. So this is a huge concern. I have a couple of thoughts, and then perhaps I could ask the department if they've got input on this, and I'm sure Judy's got input on this. Actually, great topic. Let's have a separate session, okay? Everyone. Yes. So, we've got policy here, don't we? This is great. I'm going to start a panel. Okay. So, a couple of things. One, when you talk about our aged care system and our government wanting and encouraging people to live at home longer, and then when it's time to move to the retirement village, I have a different take on that. I think retirement village is home. So I think the government is encouraging us all to live at home, whether that's in the suburbs, in a 4-bedroom home, or in our vertical village, or wherever that may be, for as long as we can. It makes sense financially for the country for us to be able to do that. The Retirement Villages Act says that, and most contracts you see say an operator, say one is independent living, and can I say I act for a number of private aged care operators that operate under the Retirement Villages Act, and I still have that contained in the contract. But retirement village operators can terminate a contract if the accommodation is no longer suitable for the resident. But could you imagine if they did? What would the outrage be? So when I have that conversation with prospective residents, because I mean, that could be you in 10 years, in 20 years, in however many years, that could be me. So yes. So if I agreed, wouldn't this be like, it's like one of those Q&A things on ABC. So if I am explaining this to a prospective resident, I like to tell prospective residents what I would want to know. And this is the one thing I would want to know. Can I get kicked out if I can't get myself to the community centre? That's really concerning. So what I'm hopeful of is that villages are designed to enable easy movement and redeveloped to allow that. I get it. It's not like that now. If I had to crystal ball it, what I think the biggest fear is, and what I'm concerned about is cognitive decline over time. And we saw it come to the front during COVID. I saw people with COVID diagnosed and people were saying you need now to isolate, and they didn't get it. They just didn't get it. They're operating things like the stove in high-rise units with gas. And, you know, we're going to live in communities with people with dementia, and we need to embrace that. Yeah. But there also needs to be limits. So when it comes to safety. So I think it's a really vexed issue. So I'm going to ask for some other opinions now. Hi, Judy. What's your opinion?
Well, I can tell you that lots and lots of questions, lots and lots of problems are arising in villages. I think that we've got to rethink retirement villages. And I also, I think there's a difference that people are saying, if I'm living in my village and I age in place, then it's fine for me to stay here, but you can't move in because you're too old. You know, that's what we're saying, isn't it? Because we'll accept the people who currently live with us in our village and allow them to age. We will not allow, and people will phone me and say, and I think we got this question last year, Catherine, government needs to legislate to stop old people moving into retirement villages. That was the question. Can you do that? Really? Can you really say you're too old to move in here? Go and ask a 20-year-old who lives in retirement villages. They'll say, old people. Of course, old people live in villages. So I do think it's actually a question, but I do actually take your point, Pam, and this is a great concern of mine, that I think that, and I've been saying this for a few years now, I think that village life, and I've been in my village for 13 years, I think village life, as I knew it when I moved in, and gee, we partied on in my village. We had some great times, but we're getting older, and, you know, I have to say, our New Year's party, the band finishes at 10 o'clock. Honestly, that is shocking. Because no one's in there. The band's playing on its own, you know, till midnight. So it's really sad. I don't think we're losing, I think what we're doing is we're losing the community. We're at risk of losing the very thing that made retirement villages part of community and connecting, and, you know, the whole thing is being taken away as we age. But I think the other thing is, the other question is, which is the other side of that, we're not getting younger people moving into villages. So we assumed, or I assumed, that as I got older, there'd be a younger cohort coming in, running the community, running the, you know, the parties, running the, you know, the activities that happen. And that's the issue for us. There's not the younger group coming in. So maybe we're going to have to think about how we actually do things in villages. Now, one of the things in my village, so I'm in a greenfield, an open village, our salespeople have a buggy. And I've been saying, could we use after hours, could we use that sales buggy to go around the village and pick up people and bring them into the community centre? And then, you know, we couldn't run a shuttle bus, but we'll pick you up at 4:45 4:30, and we'll take you back when the last raffle's drawn, something like that. Or if there's lots of cinemas, a lot of villages have movie shows or have cinemas. You know, why can't we have a golf buggy that picks people up and takes them to the theatre? We need to start thinking differently about the way we organise things in our villages. I just think we've always done it this way. We've always had a lot of participation by residents. That's going to change. How can we make it work?
Judy talked about her village quieting down. I've had the privilege of visiting her village, and I've never seen a bar like it, honest to God. There's a whole cocktail menu. Did you have anything on that?
All I'll say on that one is I've been to some industry presentations recently, and I can tell you that there is a bit of a push within the industry to really look more closely at providing more care services. So more private aged care services within villages, and there is industry chatter that is the way of the future, that people want to age in place and that they should be able to age in place. No operator wants to be the operator that turfs somebody out of their retirement village unit after they've lived there for 15 years and it's their home, and they've decided, well, you're too old now. For example, you can't walk to the community centre anymore, you're now unsuitable. And I'm pretty sure that none of you here want to be that person that gets asked to leave because you're told that you're now unsuitable, because none of us think that we are as old as we are. I qualify to go into a retirement village, just saying. So just bear that in mind, that the industry is thinking about this issue a lot. They are trying to come up with ways to deal with it. It has been a policy question, so our policy area does think about a lot of these issues, particularly cognitive decline, and how to manage that within a village, and can we even legislate anything around that? So I guess it's like Judy said, we're never going to legislate and say you can't let old people into a retirement village. But I think that we do need to accept that ageing in place is something that probably most of us would like to be able to do ourselves, and that we should allow other people to do the same thing. And unfortunately, some people do move into retirement villages probably too late, and they would have got a lot more fun and a lot more use out of the facilities if they went in there earlier. But it's just the way things are.
These days, it's all of them.
True. And they get to rely on the other residents to help them. That's the issue. That is the issue.
I'm just going to agree with Pam, who's next to me. I'm just going to agree with Pam. We bought into retirement village a long time ago, myself 10 years ago. We've been dudding. The people who are coming into our village now are in their late 80s and 90s, and we are seeing them come in for short periods of time. We're seeing the village change over, and we're not getting any young people in. They have an age limit on coming in. As far as the younger age is concerned, there should be an age limit in a retirement village for upwards. That's totally different to ageing in place.
Well, thank you for your opinion. Pam again.
Can I just make a comment that I think the thing that concerns me is the scheme operators are not recognizing what the issue is. So our village, as I said, is kind of spread out. So we don't have, they're not in a position to help us to do anything because that's not their role. We do have a buggy, and a few volunteers have taken that on to bring people down. But what happens to our leisure center when we don't have a social committee anymore, and we don't have a residents committee because we don't have anybody that's able to stand on there. Who's going to take the reins? And it's not going to be the scheme operator. That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, Pam, I absolutely hear you. You're concerned about your sense of community dissipating and not getting any recognition or assistance from the scheme operator. Yeah, and I think it's a real concern. And certainly it should be a conversation that is ongoing because there are challenges. Like, we all come at this from different perspectives, but there are challenges and it needs to be part of the narrative. I've got a question over here.
I come from a village where all that you're speaking about is available. Volunteer run buggies, but what I'm going to ask is, nobody has mentioned what the impact of the lowering of the age group to 55. Everybody's talking about the higher limit and what's that meaning for us. But what does it really mean by reducing the age to 55 of having 55-year-old working people coming into the village? I'm questioning when there is a full village, who gets a preference, the 55-year-old or the 85-year-old? I think the 85-year-old, if they are independent and able to, so that's the question that we have to.
Okay, so I don't know if everyone heard that, but the concern was if we lower the age, then what does that do to our sense of community? So in the fun facts, we heard there's new villages with minimum entry ages of 55. The vote here was if you had two prospective residents, one's 55, one's 85, the preference would be for an independent 85-year-old to maintain the sense of community. So let's take a vote. Who would vote for the 55-year-old to move in, even if they're working? Yeah. Who would vote for the 85-year-old to move in? Okay, interesting. This is interesting. Good point. Thank you for raising it. It keeps us talking. We've got a question over here. I'm coming to you.
Made such a difference to the social community. Most of the activities are initiated by the residents themselves, and anything that they understand in this way, and away they go. And so it's quite, well, it is so right.
I'm sorry, can we bring that discussion back to everyone?
So sorry, the microphone is just a little bit hard to operate. The feedback over there was somebody who lives in an Aveo village had the age reduced from 65 to 55, which has caused younger people to move in and has injected, and correct me if I'm wrong, a spark of vibrancy that didn't previously exist. There's new activities, there's new enthusiasm, overall really good. So we've got an ambassador for Aveo over there.
Aveo at Roachdale is now called Roachdale Gardens. It used to be Tall Trees.
Oh, yes.
It became Freedom.
Yes.
And now we have a new place with young people, energetic. They'll keep us alive.
Okay, so this gentleman over here lives in a village that changes their name as much as the department. Amazing.
They change our managers pretty quickly too. Average 1 year.
And echoes the sentiment that younger residents are a good thing. So that is food for thought. Oh, I'm getting the music and the lights. So we've got. Can I do one more? Yeah. Last one. Last one. Make it count.
Alex here is mine from Peninsula Park. My question is about tenants.
Oh, yeah.
And that is units being converted from a retirement village to a tenancy in a retirement village estate. I heard a previous speaker say that the rental accommodation would no longer fall under the Retirement Villages Act. And if that is the case, what would be the entry conditions for tenants into a tenanted unit? Would it be okay for an old guy like me with a young Filipino girlfriend and her teenage daughter to move in?
Do you have a young Filipino girlfriend?
Suggesting that it could be that the Department of Housing might want to accommodate people who are living in a tent down the beach.
Yeah, okay. So Barry's raising the issue of renters again, so we're going to finish on a high. But the question was, are there going to be any standards? So a couple of clarifications. One, renters can come under the RTA, but don't have to. If there are renters in a village, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a free for all. When I've seen renters in villages, they work best and they are very typical when they are older people that simply can't afford to purchase. So no, I don't envisage, and I haven't seen the scenario of people moving in with a young Filipino daughter, girlfriend and the daughter. What I have seen though is applications for Filipino girlfriends for very upmarket, expensive retirement villages where there are freehold owners. So I don't think that sort of lifestyle decision and question comes because people are renters. I think it comes because people take overseas holidays. That's all from me. I'd like to thank you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. That was great. Look, I think, Danielle, we should actually do the panel thing, and we might do a panel discussion, whether we do it by Zoom or whether we try and gather again. But, you know, with Zoom we can do. So we're really happy to look at some panels, broader discussions around the sector with, you know, inviting the department or inviting Danielle. She could be the host, you know. So thank you very much. Now, just before we finish up, and we're planning to finish up at 12:30, we've still got the election to do, but I just thought I would invite somebody that you wouldn't expect to see at a ARQ AGM ever is Bunnings. So if you haven't noticed, we have a Bunnings stand and a Bunnings representative over there. So I'm going to ask James just very briefly to come and talk about why Bunnings is here, and if you haven't got it, well, I can't see that there's any free caps left, but oh no, there are. There's free Bunnings hats if you haven't picked up one yet. So you know, go over there before you leave. There may be some umbrellas left, but if you weren't quick enough, you wouldn't have got them. But just wanting to ask James to talk a little bit about Bunnings and their involvement with ARQ. Thanks, James.
Thank you. Is that working? I don't often talk with a microphone, but I'll do that. So yes, I'm James. I'm from Bunnings, as Judy mentioned, not very unconventional, but yeah, a bit unconventional that we're sitting here today. Look, Bunnings is obviously, everyone knows what we do. Sort of what I want to talk about is sort of our assisted living range going into stores. So that's a really broad term. It's a deliberately broad term to not sort of discriminate against a particular group of people, and it's everything from accessible gardening tools to grab rails to robot window cleaners and lawn vacuums and other crazy bits and pieces like that. So, and that's been sort of rolling out across our network for the last 8 months. It's about 125 items in 275 of our 360 odd stores, and it's only phase one. We think honestly there'll be at least a minimum 5+ year timeline to get to a position where we can comfortably say we're doing it well. These things do definitely take time. And we're here, we're really excited to work with ARQRV. I know I've been saying that 100 times and it does get a bit of a tongue twister, but the reason I'm here, honestly, is just for open conversations with as many of you that would happily speak to me. We want to understand from product, from in-store experience, from community outreach, involvement with men's sheds, involvement with your communities, nothing's off the table. We want to understand how we can support that, how Bunnings and ARQ can add value to your membership with ARQ, and then obviously within our stores, and how we can reach out a little bit as well. So yeah, that's sort of why I'm here, just to give you a bit of a picture of the range. Bunnings buys what they call a diamond, a good, better, best. So the stuff on the shelf normally has a few different cost points available. And with anything that we do, you know, we range 45,000 products in store, which is about, I think, 30,000 more than a traditional grocery store. And there's mobility available for ordering. There is sort of your walking canes, rollatators, hoists, a whole bunch of sort of assistive products we can have access to. And we have, and I'll work out how we communicate after this. We could have discussed before, that's my fault. We have a dedicated 1800 phone number, which goes to a specialist team based in our offices across the country who are ready and waiting to talk to you about anything that you might need, provide quotes, provide support. So we can support. So that's a little bit about what's going on in the Bunnings world. We'd love to hear your ideas. You know, we've spoken about coffees and garden club in our stores and running sort of those events with potentially some of our supplier partners there to do some education and ARQRV there as well, and taking a bit of a roadshow around to provide activities and I guess sort of different opportunities to educate and chat between us. So yeah, if you have anything to say, please come and speak to me. Thank you.
Thanks so much, James, and we look forward to learning more about the way Bunnings operate. Daniel has a question. Okay, so we're really hopeful that we can have a good working partner with Bunnings, and you know, going forward, looking at the independent living aids that they will be holding in their stores. So that's great. If there's a special number we can get to you, but be aware that we will keep you informed about moving forward, how we can work more successfully with Bunnings going forward. Okay, so now I don't have any other business. Does anybody else have any other business as we begin to wrap up? So we'll just do the election of the committee, and now I can't see Lisa. Oh, you're here. Thank you. Lisa, if you didn't meet her, she's from COTA, so independently will run the election for us. So thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, and thanks for trusting me with probably the most important part of the day, isn't it? And she's also kindly given me some words, so hopefully I get it all right. So the following people have been nominated for the ARQRV 2025-2026 committee. President Judy Mayfield has been nominated by Deborah Lewis from Beachmere Sands Retirement Village, and it's seconded by Bernadette Luck from Beachmere Sand Retirement Village as well. As there are no further nominations, Judy is duly elected as president. Welcome back, Judy. Vice President Jeff Burchell has been nominated by Judy Mayfield, Beachmere Sands Retirement Village. I'll get it before I leave for the day. It's been seconded by Virginia Bergman from Plantation Morayfield. There being no further nominations, Jeff is duly elected as Vice President. Oh, did I get it wrong? Oh, pardon me. Vice President, yeah, and then Vice President Frank. You're next on my list, I promise. Is that right? Yes. Amazing. As you've probably heard, there are two vice presidents. So Vice President Frank Tanti has been nominated by Brian Mackay from Seasons, seconded by Gary Corkill from North Lakes Retirement Village. There being no further nominations, Frank is duly elected. Hello. As Vice President. Treasurer Les Ambor is nominated by Betty Collins from Aveo Albany Creek Retirement Village and has been seconded by Robert Kenneth Lavers from Aveo Albany Creek. There being no further nominations, Les is duly elected as treasurer. And then we have our committee member nominations. I have Virginia Bergman, nominated by Jackie Savage from Plantation Moray Field, seconded by Russell Ruby, also Plantation Moray Field. We've got committee member Bev Lauder, nominated by Les Ambor, Aveo Albany Creek. This is right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
thank
Yeah,
goodness, I
yes,
had a
yes.
moment. I was like, Judy.
I was just saying I haven't met Bev if she's here.
Oh, Bev, are you here? Bev!
Sorry, I didn't introduce.
So Bev Lauder has been nominated by Les Ambor, Aveo Albany Creek, and has been seconded by Virginia Bergman, Plantation Moray Field. We have committee member Jill Brown, nominated by Marilyn Cullen of Newport Retirement Village, and has been seconded by Ron Gale from Kawana Islands Retirement Village. And we have Glenn Caper, who's been nominated by Dawn Greenhow. Sorry. We're going to say, if I've got your last name wrong, my apologies. Nominated from the Sanford Retirement Village and seconded by George Johnson at Sanford Retirement Village. So Virginia, Bev, Jill, and Glenn are duly elected to the committee, and Jan Sullivan has been duly appointed as a secretary for the committee. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks very much, Lisa. All right, well, that just about wraps up our meeting for today. Just reminding you that next year we will go south. So we will be at Fitzy's at Loganholme. We alternate between north and south just to allow easy access for all members. Really look forward to seeing you all next year. Hopefully we can meet more of you via Zoom conferencing and also doing village visits by Zoom conference. So really hoping that we can get into more villages to talk to you about the things that matter to you. Also, Danielle has offered to be our game show host. For any panel forums and discussions that we may have. Reminding you that the residence committee forums are held quarterly. If you have a residence committee and register for the support desk, we meet quarterly with the department and with Danielle. And also, if you put up your hand, or if you are already a promoter, that we also meet with you quarterly, twice a year, to talk about the role of the promoters. So thank you all very much for coming, and at 12:20 I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you.